14. Professional ethics. DOI 10.12019,781,3,156,673 to 14. Introduction. Acting professionally and ethically is at the heart of what it means to be a chartered surveyor. In this chapter, we will look at the requirements of the BORICS in relation to ethical and professional practice. Most surveyors will initially be introduced to ethics and professionalism in a module at university or another academic institution. This will then be built on by any workplace induction, ongoing training and CPD that a surveyor undertakes. Ethics is an area for continued focus throughout a surveyor's career, not just something that should be considered once at the outset. Ethics, conduct rules and professionalism is a mandatory APC competency that all candidates must satisfy at Level 3. They must consider the ethics of their reasoned advice to clients and ensure that they give advice in a robust, professional and moral manner. This is not simply about knowing how to act ethically or being aware of the relevant BORICS guidance. It is about the reasoned application of ethics to the decisions and actions that a surveyor makes within their personal and professional lives. In the final assessment interview, an incorrect or unethical answer in relation to the ethics, conduct rules and professionalism competency will constitute an automatic fail, irrespective of a candidate's performance in the rest of their interview. The SOC BORICS candidates must also demonstrate their strong understanding and application of ethics and professionalism through the BORICS online ethics module and test. Once qualified as a SOC BORICS or MRICS, surveyors must undertake CPD in relation to the global professional and ethical standards every 3 years to satisfy the mandatory requirements of the BORICS. Acting ethically leads to high standards of professionalism, service and client care being provided, so read on to find out what surveyors need to know in practice. Why is acting ethically and professionally so important? Acting ethically and professionally gives clients and the public confidence in the advice that chartered surveyors provide. This is emphasized by BORICS research, which stated that high ethical standards should be seen as part of an employer organization's good governance and through this its competitive advantage, because offering a high-quality service to the public will raise the profile of the employing organization, which is likely to be reflected in its balance sheet, and thus enhance the reputation of the entire surveying profession, as well as that of its employees. P.5. What ethical standards should chartered surveyors be aware of? The BORICS set ethical requirements for chartered surveyors in the rules of conduct for members, and the global professional and ethical standards. Firms also need to adhere to the rules of conduct for firms, which were discussed at length in Chapter 12. The BORICS also publish supporting guidance, including the Professional Statements Client Money Handling, 1st edition, Conflicts of Interest, 1st edition, Encountering Bribery and Corruption, Money Laundering and Terrorist Financing, 1st edition. There is also supplemental specific guidance in Professional Statement Conflicts of Interest, UK Commercial Property Market Investment Agency, 1st edition. Chartered surveyors will also need to adhere to sector-specific standards set out by the BORICS, such as BORICS Valuation, Global Standards, Red Book Global, and the Black Book suite of guidance notes for quantity surveying and construction professionals. Chartered surveyors will also need to adhere to their own personal ethical and moral values, as well as those set out in their firm or employer's policy and guidance. What are the rules of conduct for members? The rules of conduct for members reflect the requirements of the rules of conduct for firms. They were last updated in March 2020 as version 7. The rules of conduct for members adopt the principles of better regulation, proportionality, accountability, consistency, targeting and transparency. The rules of conduct are made by the BORICS under Article 18 of the Supplemental Charter 1973 and by Law 5 of the BORICS bylaws. The aim of the rules of conduct for members is to provide members with clear standards of professionalism, conduct and practice. A failure to comply with the rules of conduct may lead to disciplinary action by the BORICS. The rules of conduct for members are split into 2 parts, general, which is very brief, and personal and professional standards. Part 2 Personal and professional standards requires members to act with integrity and avoid conflicts of interest, carry out professional work competently, provide a high standard of service to clients, comply with the BORICS requirements relating to CPD, Ensure that personal and professional finances are managed diligently. Submit information to and cooperate with the BORICs as required. What are the global professional and ethical standards? The BORIC's Global Professional and Ethical Standards were introduced in 2009 to replace the former 12 core values. They reflect the requirements of the International Ethics Standards (IES), which were introduced in December 2016 and are adopted by over 120 organizations globally. The IEs include the following 10 principles: accountability, confidentiality, conflict of interest, financial responsibility, integrity, lawfulness, reflection, standard of service, transparency and trust. The 5 BORIC's Global Professional and Ethical Standards are to act with integrity. This relates to acting honestly and in a straightforward manner. Examples of this include respecting client confidentiality, upholding a surveyor's professional duty of care towards a client, avoiding conflicts of interest, not accepting gifts or hospitality that might be perceived as improper, and providing unbiased professional advice to clients. Always provide a high standard of service. This relates to providing the highest standard of professional advice or support to clients in compliance with signed written terms of engagement. Examples of this include acting within a surveyor's scope of competence, being transparent about fees, communicating effectively and ensuring good payment practices for suppliers or contractors. Act in a way that promotes trust in the profession. This relates to acting professionally and positively in surveyors' personal and professional lives. Examples of this include fulfilling a surveyor's obligations to clients and other key stakeholders, promoting the benefits of acting professionally and acting ethically in all areas of life. Treat others with respect. This relates to acting ethically, fairly and in a non-discriminatory manner towards others, no matter who they are or what they stand for. This will include discrimination based on any of the protected characteristics under the Equality Act, 2010 such as age, sexual orientation or religion. Examples of this include treating all potential and existing clients fairly, equally and politely. Take responsibility. This relates to being accountable and taking action if something doesn't feel right. Examples of this include acting diligently, resolving complaints and taking a stand and speaking out where necessary. Chartered surveyors may benefit from referring to the BORIC's ethics decision tree when considering how to proceed in relation to an ethical dilemma. The rules of conduct for firms and for members and the global professional and ethical standards are currently being consulted on by the BORICs to provide a new statement relating to ethics and rules of conduct. This is likely to be released during 2021, with the aim of providing clarity, effectiveness and brevity in refined ethical and professional standards. How can chartered surveyors manage conflicts of interest? To act ethically and professionally, chartered surveyors need to ensure that they are not influenced by any perceived or actual conflicts of interest. The BORICs set out mandatory requirements relating to conflicts of interest in the Professional Statement Conflicts of Interest, First Edition. This relates to both the actions of firms and members and provides guidance on how to comply with the requirements of the rules of conduct and global professional and ethical standards. The BORICs state that the most important reason for avoiding conflicts of interest is to prevent anything getting in the way of your duty to advise and represent each client objectively and independently, without regard to the consequences to another client, any third party, or your own interests, and that the clients and in turn the public can be confident you are doing so. BORICs 2017 AP.6. A conflict of interest is defined as BORICs 2017 AP.4. Party conflict, a situation in which the duty of an BORICs member, working independently or within a non-regulated firm, or within a regulated firm, or a regulated firm to act in the interests of a client or other party, in a professional assignment conflicts with a duty owed to another client or party in relation to the same, or a related professional assignment. Own interest conflict, a situation in which the duty of an BORICs member, working independently or within a non-regulated firm, or within a regulated firm, or a regulated firm to act in the interests of a client in a professional assignment conflicts with the interests of that same BORICs member/firm, or in the case of a regulated firm, the interests of any of the individuals within that regulated firm, who are involved directly or indirectly in that or any related professional assignment. Confidential information conflict, a conflict between the duty of an BORIX member, working independently or within a non-regulated firm, or within a regulated firm, to provide material information to one client, and the duty of that BORIX member, working independently or within a non-regulated firm, or of a regulated firm to another client to keep that same information confidential. The BORIX require that regulated firms and members must not accept an instruction where there is an actual or perceived conflict of interest, unless written informed consent is provided by all concerned parties. Regulated firms must implement procedures to manage conflicts of interest, including written records of decisions made and controls put in place. In the first instance, avoiding conflicts of interest is the preferred course of action. If a conflict of interest is identified, then the firm or member should consider whether the instruction should simply be declined, or if the conflict can be managed via seeking informed written consent and/or implementing an information barrier. An information barrier, previously known as a Chinese wall, requires the physical and/or electronic separation of individuals, or groups of individuals, within the same firm, which prevents confidential information passing between them. BORIX 2017 p.4. This could include separating administration teams and filing systems, or handling the instructions in separate offices and by different surveyors. Particularly in small firms, it may be impossible to set up a truly robust information barrier, so declining an instruction may be the most ethical course of action. The BORIX also provides supplementary mandatory guidance for UK Commercial Investment Agency surveyors through the Professional Statement Conflicts of Interest, UK Commercial Property Market Investment Agency, First Edition. This specifically prohibits the practice of dual agency, also known as double dipping, meaning that an agent cannot act for both the seller and buyer, i.e. both parties, in an investment transaction. The professional statement also provides guidance on multiple introductions and incremental advice. Conclusion. In conclusion, it is clear that acting ethically is at the absolute heart of what it means to be a chartered surveyor. It is not simply enough to be sufficiently competent, skilled and knowledgeable. This is clearly evidenced by the requirement for all APC candidates to satisfy the requirements of Level 3 in the Ethics, Rules of Conduct and Professionalism competency. In the final assessment interview, an incorrect or unethical answer in relation to this competency will constitute an automatic failure, irrespective of a candidate's performance in the rest of their interview. ASOC BORIX candidates must also demonstrate their strong understanding and application of ethics and professionalism through the BORIX online ethics module and test. Chartered surveyors must seek to display the highest standards of professionalism in all areas of their lives, both personal and professional. This should be an aspiration for all existing and future